Building a studio is more than just scenic. Today, we're going to discuss the 6 key elements of a studio and the questions you need to be considering to determine if a studio is right for your organization. Hi, I'm Donnie Bronner, owner and CEO of Paragon 360.
And I'm Tim Neptune, pastor of Venture Church in Naples, Florida, and Chief Strategy Officer at Paragon 360.
And this is episode 3 of Full Circle, the 360 approach to space design and engaging environments. We're coming to you today from the Paragon News Desk, and we're going to dig into the 6 key elements of studios: studio design, audio, video, lighting, scenic, and production. We have some of our design team with us today.
Hi, I'm Ron Robertson, Vice President of Design Services.
And I'm Mark Coble. I lead audio and acoustic design.
Before we dive in, we want to thank our sponsor.
Environmental Lights partners with customers from project inception, planning, specification, and installation of LED lighting systems to meet the customer's exact needs. They transform environments in retail display, entertainment, trade show, hospitality, casino gaming, and audiovisual integration. Learn more at environmentallights.com.
We've spent time in our previous episodes talking about how organizations can use studios to create more compelling content, to drive engagement with their audiences. And today we want to get a little more technical in our discussion. So Tim, just as a recap, how are you seeing churches specifically using studios?
Well, we're seeing churches use studios in many different ways. Announcement videos, panel discussions, interviews, video Bible studies, television and radio programs, podcasts, children's programming. I mean, truthfully, we probably haven't even scratched the surface on the way that churches are going to be using this platform going forward.
Exactly, and in the corporate world, they're using studios for product demos and customer sales pitches, thought leadership content, employee training, company meetings, and even to create content for their own social channels. So Ron, what are some of the main decisions that need to be made for designing a studio?
Well, the first thing that needs to be determined is, what do you want to do with the studio? How do you want to utilize it? If you're a business, are you trying to provide thought leadership and how-to content? Or are you trying to connect with your employees? If you're a church, are you trying to produce worship services in the space, interviews, children's content, maybe some panel discussions? These things guide the design of the studio from Scenic to AVL. Answering these questions also determine how much flexibility you need in a studio design. Sometimes you need to determine what space in your current facility would be ideal for a studio. A lot of times studios don't require a lot of space, and oftentimes organizations have rooms that could be repurposed into a studio.
So let's talk more about that. What should a church be thinking about in regards to how much space a studio may take?
Well, you really could do a living room set in a very small space. If you want to do a studio for praise and worship, maybe a live band, you're obviously going to need a lot more room for that. But it all goes back to the original question of what you want to do with the studio.
Yeah, and in the church world, building needs have changed drastically through the years. We've seen churches that are now converting libraries and choir lofts and Sunday school classrooms into studios.
Yeah, exactly. So let's go deeper into the technical aspect of this, Mark. From an audio perspective, what's some of the important things to consider when thinking about a studio?
Well, Donnie, I think the proper AVL elements will be critical to how well your content translates to the viewer. First and most importantly, though, would be acoustics. This is very important because many of the spaces that you could turn into a studio were not really designed with acoustical properties. Eliminating reflections, reverberation, external noise, all this essential to capturing high-quality audio in your studio.
Exactly. Acoustics makes a huge difference, and really it's one of the things most often overlooked. Now, what are some of the considerations for video?
Well, typically you'd be looking at 2 to 3 cameras for most shoots. You'd want those cameras to be of broadcast quality with lensing to keep everything in the foreground in focus. You can certainly get into more complex setups for larger studios or a studio with multiple sets. But really, depending upon the need or the style you're trying to achieve, the camera types could vary significantly in capabilities and in cost. And also, teleprompting is something to consider in a studio setup as well.
Well, with all the technical elements, sky's the limit, right? There's a lot to consider here. Ron, let's touch on lighting for a moment. Really a very important part of a successful studio production. What type of lighting would you typically see in a studio like this?
Well, every studio, they're going to have limitations and hurdles that you're going to have to get over when it comes to lighting. I really can't overstate the importance of the right lighting. When we're talking about color temperatures, angles, fixture choices, reflections, shadows, contrast ratios, this all plays a pivotal role in the quality of the end product. This is the time when you really need to sit down with your video team and go over the production expectations and the camera shots. Then you can develop a lighting design that works for your space. There's a lot of tools available to accomplish superior lighting for studio productions, but it can get really complicated.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the candy, the scenic and set design. Ron, what are some of the things that should be considered here?
Well, it really is the scenic and set elements that can be the biggest piece of the puzzle that help you connect with your audience and help brand your message. The scenic can set the tone for the content and really influence the feeling you create for your audience. From a technical standpoint, you're going to want a pleasing color palette, depth, dimension, textures. All this should tie into your branding.
Yeah, and if you want a more casual encounter, you can create a living room set, which is really good for a conversational approach between maybe 2 or 3 people.
Yeah, and likewise, for a more formal encounter, you might create a news desk. This is a more traditional ESPN style approach to sharing content. In this set, you have the ability to deliver content and leverage those built-in monitors. If you want the flexibility of both casual and formal sets, that can be considered in the design phase to help you create versatile studio space. You can see here, this is the same news desk, but on a tighter shot. That creates a more intimate encounter. The specific design also allows for the set color to be changed through LED lights. The carefully designed mix of all these things is going to be imperative for you to create that engaging content that holds the attention of your viewers.
So, really, we're just scratching the surface on this. There's so much more to this than just a person standing in front of a camera. Even after the studio design, the audio, video, lighting, scenic, we still have to consider production. So, Tim, what are some of the key elements to the production phase?
Well, you need a clear content plan to begin with, and then you need to determine how that content comes to life through the screen, beyond what is being captured in the studio. You hold your audience when you create a dynamic experience. That includes developing intros and outros, using supporting graphics to tell the story, rolling B-roll and other kind of shots that help really drive home the message. Shot angles, lighting, they all have to be thought through in advance of the capture to ensure they support your goals for audience connection. All of these elements improve awareness and retention of what's being said.
And I think it's really important to note that this requires a team. Depending upon the size of the studio, this could require 2 or more people to pull off the production planning, video capture, editing, and deployment. It really depends on how far you want to take it. The technical staff has become, and certainly will continue to become, critical positions in staffing of all sizes.
Building a studio and leveraging it effectively takes a lot of planning and consideration, but the outcome is excellent content that creates connection and engagement with your audience. This is a must if you want to continue to nurture those long-term relationships with your audience. We're excited about the digital transformation ahead. Thanks for joining us, guys. And thank you for joining us today online. For more insights, sign up for Full Circle content at paragon360.com or subscribe on YouTube.